Okay, so picture this. It's, I don't know, 11:30 at night. You promised yourself you were going to bed an hour ago, but, well, you didn't. You're lying there, blue light, just bathing your face. And you are deep in the doom scroll cycle. You know the one I'm talking about.
Oh, I know it well.
You're just swiping up, letting the algorithm feed you whatever it thinks your tired brain needs.
That's the witching hour of social media, isn't it? It's when our critical thinking defenses are probably at their lowest.
Exactly. And then suddenly your thumb just, it stops. Because a video pops up that completely arrests you. It's this young guy. He's looking right down the lens of the camera. He looks incredibly confident, almost smug, and he's practically shouting at you.
Okay.
He just yells, "Renewables are a scam, they don't work."
Right, and that's the classic rage bait hook. It is absolutely designed to freeze your thumb because you either, agree with him and you're nodding along, or you're absolutely furious and you're already getting your fingers ready to type in the comments.
That is exactly what I felt.
Yes.
I was ready to argue. But then, and this is the part that was so weird, the video just cuts. The whole editing style changes completely. The same guy is there, but the smugness, it's gone. The shouting, gone. He's suddenly calm, he's totally deadpan, and he's surrounded by this torrent of charts and data visualizations that are sort of floating around his head.
I know who you're talking about.
And he proceeds to systematically, point by point, dismantle the very myth that he just acted out a second before.
That is a masterclass in the bait and switch. You're describing a video by Simon Clark.
I am. And the whiplash of that moment, it really stuck with me. Because usually when I see someone screaming about climate change on TikTok, it's noise, it's dismissible. But this felt completely different. It felt like he had somehow hacked the format.
That's because he has. I mean, for a bit of context here, Simon Clark isn't just some guy with a ring light and an opinion. He is a physicist.
Right.
He holds a PhD in stratospheric dynamics from the University of Exeter.
Okay, let's pause right there. Stratospheric dynamics. That sounds incredibly impressive, but let's be real, what does that actually mean? Is he just a glorified weather guy?
It's a lot more intense than checking if it's going to rain tomorrow.
Yeah.
Stratospheric dynamics involves some really high-level physics and mathematics to model how the entire atmosphere behaves on a planetary scale.
Wow.
So he's studying the fluid dynamics of the very air that wraps around the Earth. So when he talks about climate models or how heat is trapped by CO2, he isn't just reading a Wikipedia summary. He is literally doing the math that underpins those models.
So he's a legitimate heavyweight academic.
He absolutely is.
But, and this is the part that gets me, he isn't lecturing from a podium. He isn't publishing this stuff behind a paywall in some obscure journal. He's on TikTok. He's doing skits where he yells at himself. And that video we just talked about got almost 180,000 views.
And that, right there, that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We aren't just looking at Simon Clark. We're looking at a whole new phenomenon that he represents.
Yeah.
The rise of the science influencer.
It really feels like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? Science and influencer. I mean, one implies rigor, patience, peer review.
Right.
The other implies, I don't know, vanity metrics and selling teeth whitening strips on Instagram.
It does feel like oil and water. But we are seeing this massive shift. You have scientists, doctors, lab technicians, people who traditionally would be, locked away in a lab or a clinic. They are leaving those spaces. They're stepping onto the digital battlefield to fight a war.
A war against misinformation.
Exactly.
And let's be clear about what that battlefield is. We aren't talking about debates in town halls or letters to the editor anymore. We are talking about TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. That's the front line.
And the enemy, so to speak, is incredibly well entrenched. I mean, we were talking about climate denialism, wellness pseudoscience, anti-vaccine narratives. These are stories that are designed to be sticky. They're designed to spread like wildfire.
I found this stat from the Reuters Institute that was it was really sobering. They released a report in 2025 finding that 65% of people worldwide now consume video on social media.
That number is staggering. It is just staggering. It basically means that for the majority of the planet, appointment television, the nightly news, it's gone. The phone is the primary window to the world now.
And for a lot of people, especially younger demographics, that video feed is their primary news source. They aren't going to the BBC or the New York Times website. They are getting their worldview delivered to them by their For You page.
And that begs the question.
Who is filling that feed?
Exactly. A huge chunk of that so-called news is created by anti-science influencers. And we have to give them credit where it's due. They are very, very good at what they do.
I'm brilliant at it.
They build these incredibly loyal followings using fear, using false authority, and very, very specific emotional triggers.
We've all seen it. I mean, the sources point to misleading videos about ADHD racking up 280 million views. Where you see these fake medical screening posts that, well, surprise, surprise, they come from people selling the very supplement that cures the problem they just invented for you.
The stakes are just incredibly high. This isn't just about someone being wrong on the internet anymore.
No.
Misinformation about vaccines or about the climate crisis, that translates directly into real-world behavior. It affects public health. It affects how we vote on the literal safety of the planet.
So here is our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We aren't just going to list a bunch of cool science YouTubers. We want to understand the mechanics of this fight. How do you fight a lie that travels, 10 times faster than the truth?
It's an asymmetric war. It truly is.
It is. So we're going to look at their tactics.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about something called pre-bunking. We're going to talk about gaming the algorithm with backward shirts. And yes, that is a real strategy. And we're going to ask the big question at the end. Is any of this actually working?
Can a physicist with a ring light really make a dent in that wall of noise? Let's get into it.
Before we could really appreciate the solution, though, I think we have to properly understand the problem. Because I think a lot of us, and I'd include myself in this, we like to think we're immune to misinformation. We think, oh, I'm smart, I can spot a fake.
And that is probably the single most dangerous assumption you can make.
Right. But the data shows we're all susceptible. So why does it spread so easily? Why is a lie so much stickier than, say, a fact check?
There is actually a formula to it, and we have some fascinating insights here from a social scientist, Louisa Ha at Bowling Green State University. She's broken down what she calls the best lie.
I love that framing. The best lie. It sounds like a category at the Oscars or something.
It essentially is in terms of its performance. Louisa Ha argues that the most effective misinformation is never, ever 100% false. If I just tell you the sky is neon green, you know I'm lying. That's bad lie.
Right. It's just too easily disprovable. It doesn't pass the sniff test.
Exactly. The best lie, on the other hand, it blends facts with fiction. It takes a kernel of truth, maybe a real statistic or a real quote from a study that's been taken out of context, and then it wraps it in a completely false narrative.
So they build a little foundation of credibility first.
Precisely. They pretend to be authentic, to be trustworthy. They might say, look at this chart from the CDC. And the chart itself, it's a real chart. But then they interpret that chart in a way that is completely fundamentally wrong.
So you, the viewer, you see the chart, you recognize the CDC logo, and your brain just says, okay, this feels legitimate, and then you swallow the poison pill that comes right after it.
That is the exact mechanism. And crucially, they appeal to our deep-seated beliefs and our fears. This is the emotional hook. If you are a parent and you're already worried about chemicals in your food, or if you are, suspicious of big pharmaceutical companies, a video that taps into that pre-existing fear feels true to you on an emotional level.
It validates your anxiety. It tells you your gut feeling was right all along.
Yes. And because it feels emotionally true, you are so much less likely to scrutinize the factual details. You want to believe it.
That makes so much sense. It just bypasses the logical, critical part of the brain and goes straight for the gut. But then you have the accelerant. We have to talk about the platform itself, the algorithm trap.
This is the part that we really, really need to look under the hood of. When we say the algorithm, people tend to think of some, evil mastermind in Silicon Valley turning a dial, but it's really just a value function.
It's just math.
It's just math. And it's math that cares about one thing and one thing only: retention, linger time. How long can we keep you watching?
Simon Clark had a really interesting observation about this. He said the algorithm is essentially blind to content. It has no idea if a video is true or false. It has no moral compass.
It doesn't.
It only knows if you're watching it.
And this is where the trap just snaps shut. The algorithm interprets linger time as interest. So if you watch a video because it is fascinating and educational and beautiful, the algorithm says, great, this person likes this, show it to more people. But What if you watch a video because you are horrified?
Or because you're absolutely furious.
Exactly. If you stop scrolling to watch a guy shout that, gravity is a lie, and you just stare at it in absolute disbelief for 30 seconds to the algorithm, that is identical to fascination.
So hate watching is still watching.
Hate watching is the fuel of the misinformation economy. And then think about what you do next. You go to the comment section, you type, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Here is a link to Isaac Newton's Wikipedia page." You think you are fighting the good fight.
Oh, I am so guilty of this. I feel like I have a civic duty to correct the record in the comments.
But in the cold, hard eyes of the algorithm, you are engaging. You are adding comments. You are creating content. You are keeping the discussion going. Clark calls this the engagement trap. Every single angry comment, actually, it sends a signal to the server that says, this content is sticky. It's creating a reaction. Push it to 10,000 more people.
So anti-science content, which is naturally provocative, everything you know is a lie, they're poisoning you. That has a massive, massive home court advantage.
It does. It is engineered to create friction, and friction creates heat, and heat is what rises in the feed. Science, on the other hand, science is often nuanced. It's careful. It involves caveats and uncertainty.
More research is needed. That's the classic line.
Exactly. And that is not a sexy, clickable headline. Maybe under certain very specific conditions, X can sometimes lead to Y does not go viral, X kills you, that goes viral.
So science just has a much harder time competing for that precious linger time.
A much harder time.
But that's where this new guard comes in. They are realizing they can't just write a paper, put it on a shelf, and hope people stumble upon it. They have to enter the arena. They have to play the game by the rules that exist, not the rules they wish existed.
They have to become influencers, whether they like the term or not.
So let's meet some of the people who are actually doing this. We've already talked a bit about Simon Clark.
Right. And again, his background is the completely traditional academic path. Oxford undergrad, Exeter PhD. About 15 years ago, he started on YouTube just helping students with university admissions. It was very niche, very safe.
So what was the turning point? How did he end up fighting climate deniers?
He said he realized that the natural thing for his specific field, atmospheric physics, was to talk about the single biggest atmospheric event in human history, the climate crisis.
But he doesn't just do the doom and gloom thing, right? Because I feel like that turns people off just as quickly.
No, and that's his real skill. He focuses on the physics, how it actually works, and more importantly, the solutions. But he also tackles the politics. He asks, why aren't we implementing the solutions we already have?
And he does it by
adopting the visual language of the platform. He looks like a YouTuber, he uses quick cuts, he uses memes, he tells jokes. He doesn't look like a professor in a tweed jacket standing in a lecture hall.
Which just lowers that barrier to entry. If you see a guy at a chalkboard, you probably keep scrolling. If you see a guy doing a funny skit about renewable energy scams, you might actually stop and listen.
Exactly. Now let's pivot to the medical side of this. We have to talk about Dr. Megan Rossi.
She goes by @theguthealthdoctor on Instagram. A huge account.
Huge. And she's a registered dietitian and a research fellow at King's College London. So again, serious credentials.
Her origin story is one I think a lot of doctors and clinicians can probably relate to. She was seeing patients in her clinic, and they were coming in absolutely terrified.
They were quoting blogs, weren't they?
Terrible, unverified wellness blogs. They were cutting out entire food groups. They were convinced they had to avoid lectins or whatever the villain of the week was. And she was frustrated.
That frustration seems to be the catalyst for almost all of these creators. She realized she was fighting a losing battle, treating one patient at a time, while the internet was poisoning thousands more. She had to go to the source. So she started her account way back in 2015.
And what I really appreciate about her style is that she is the absolute antithesis of the fearmongers. I mean, the entire wellness industry basically runs on fear. Don't eat this, it will destroy your gut. This one food will give you cancer.
And she leans entirely on peer-reviewed evidence. She actually cites her sources in the captions, which is amazing, but her tone is it's calm, it's empowering. If you look at her comments, people specifically thank her for not being scary. They find it so refreshing to get information that is just helpful.
But so she's fighting fear with facts, but the facts are delivered with a huge dose of empathy.
Yes. But then we have someone who completely breaks the mold. we have to talk about Big Manny.
Oh, I love Big Manny. Emmanuel Wallace
Yeah.
at Big.Manny1.
He is an absolute phenomenon. He's a former secondary school science technician.
So he was the guy setting up the Bunsen burners and the labs for the teachers.
Exactly. He wasn't the head of the department. He was the guy in the back room making sure the chemicals were mixed right. And now he has over 2 million followers. And he has this one video. I think it is the perfect example of effective science communication in the TikTok era.
The lithium battery demo.
Oh, the chicken breast video.
You've seen this.
It is seared into my brain.
It is unforgettable. But for anyone listening who hasn't seen it, you have to paint the picture.
Okay, so the goal of the video is to show the danger of swallowing a lithium button battery, you know, the little silver bisque ones in car keys. It's a huge, huge risk for toddlers. A traditional educator might show a diagram of the esophagus and try to explain the chemical reaction.
Which is boring and abstract.
It's completely abstract. Big Manny doesn't do abstract. He takes a raw pink chicken breast, he puts it on a table.
It's so visceral already.
It is, and he takes the little lithium battery and he slides it inside the layers of the meat, and he looks right at the camera lens, dead serious, and says one line, "This chicken breast represents you."
And then
He just lets the camera roll. You watch the chemical reaction happen in real time. The meat starts to smoke, it starts to sizzle, you can actually hear it, and then pop, the chicken literally bursts into flames.
it bursts into flames on the table.
It burns this black, charred crater right into the meat.
I mean, that is just unforgettable. If you are a parent watching that, you are never leaving a battery out on the counter again, ever.
Exactly. It is visceral. It creates a powerful emotional memory. But here's the other crucial thing about Big Manny. He doesn't wear a lab coat.
No, he's always in a tracksuit.
He's in a tracksuit. He speaks in multicultural London English. He uses slang. He's not putting on a show. He says, "I just be myself."
Why is that so important? I mean, why does the tracksuit matter so much?
Because it completely shatters the ivory tower stereotype of a scientist. A lot of people, especially kids from working class backgrounds, they feel alienated by traditional science. It feels elitist. It feels like school. Big Manny feels like a peer. He feels like your cool, smart friend who's about to show you something wild.
It's all about relatability.
It's about trust. And because of that, he's collaborated with Prince William, with Millie Bobby Brown. He's reaching an audience that would never, ever click on a lecture about battery chemistry, but they will absolutely watch a chicken explode.
So we have the players. We have the pre-bunker, Simon Clark, the empathic doctor, Megan Rossi, and the relatable technician, Big Manny. Now let's get into the weeds. How are they actually doing it? What are the strategies in their playbook?
There seem to be 3 main tactics that are the most effective, and the first one is the one that Simon Clark really champions, pre-bunking.
Pre-bunking. Sounds like something you do before you go camping to get your tent ready.
It does, doesn't it? But a better way to think of it is more like a vaccine.
A cognitive vaccine.
Exactly. In immunology, right, you expose the body to a weakened or dead version of a virus so the immune system learns to recognize the threat before the real thing arrives. Pre-bunking works the exact same way with information.
Okay, so how does that work in practice? What does that look like in a video?
The idea is to reach a broad audience with the solid, unambiguous facts before they ever see the lie. You warn them about the specific manipulation tactics they are about to encounter.
So instead of waiting for someone to believe a myth and then trying to fix it afterwards.
Which is debunking, and as we know, debunking is incredibly hard to do effectively.
Why is it so hard, though? Intuitively, it feels like facts should win.
Because of something called confirmation bias. Once a myth takes root, once it becomes part of someone's worldview or even their identity dislodging it, it's actually painful. It requires the person to admit they were wrong. It feels like a personal attack.
So pre-bunking gets in there first, before the walls go up.
Right. So Clark might make a video saying, hey, you're going to see a lot of videos claiming that wind turbines kill all the birds. Here is the actual data on bird mortality, but also watch out for this specific trick they use, where they show a photo of a dead bird that was actually hit by a car in a completely different country.
So then, 2 days later, I'm doom scrolling. I see that anti-wind video. I see the photo of the dead bird.
And your brain triggers a little recognition response, a little alarm goes off. You think, wait a minute, Simon told me they would do this. You are mentally protected against the manipulation because you've seen the playbook. You spot the con before it even lands.
That is incredibly smart. It's proactive instead of reactive. But there is a catch, right? To pre-bunk effectively, you need people to actually watch your video in the first place. You need to reach the people who aren't already science nerds.
Which brings us to strategy B, and this is where it gets a little ridiculous, but also kind of brilliant. Gaming the engagement algorithm.
Okay, I have to be honest, when I read about this in the notes for our deep dive, I laughed out loud. You have to tell me about the backward shirt trick.
Okay, so Simon Clark fully admits to doing this. He will record a video, a completely serious video about atmospheric physics, while he is wearing his t-shirt backward. On purpose.
And he just doesn't mention it. He just acts like everything is normal.
Never. He just blows ahead with the science and ignores it completely.
I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. That sounds, it sounds incredibly childish. We are talking about the future of the planet, about very serious science, and this guy is relying on a wardrobe malfunction.
It feels trivial, doesn't it? It feels like it cheapens the whole discourse.
It does. It feels like a gimmick. If I'm a serious Oxford-educated academic, do I really want to be known as the backward shirt guy?
That is the exact tension that all of these creators are wrestling with. Clark calls it gaming the system. But you have to look at the alternative. Let's say you upload a brilliant, dignified 40-minute lecture on nuclear fission. You wear your shirt correctly, you speak perfectly, your lighting is impeccable.
And nobody watches it.
Maybe your mom watches it, maybe 3 of your grad students watch it. Meanwhile, the guy screaming that nuclear plants are just bombs waiting to happen has 4 million views.
Okay, so the backward shirt, what does it actually do? What's the mechanism?
Think about the comment section. He knows that people on the internet cannot resist correcting a mistake. It is a fundamental law of human nature.
It's irresistible.
It is. People will flood the comments saying, dude, your shirt is backward. You don't know how to dress yourself. How can I trust your physics if you can't even put on a t-shirt?
And the algorithm just sees?
High engagement. The algorithm sees hundreds, maybe thousands of comments. It doesn't read them. It has no idea they're all talking about laundry. It just thinks, wow, this video is stimulating a lot of conversation. It must be really important. Let's push it to thousands more people.
So he is literally hacking the pedantic nature of commenters to spread educational content about climate change.
Exactly. He has a quote where he says, it's stupid, but it works. So I guess it's not stupid.
It's a very utilitarian argument. You're trading a tiny, tiny bit of your dignity for a massive amount of reach.
That's the calculation they're all making. And he did something similar with a big video on nuclear power. He made a 40-minute deep dive, which, you know, the algorithm usually hates because it's long.
Right, long-form content is a really hard sell on these platforms.
But he knew that nuclear power was an incredibly divisive topic. So right at the start of the video, he looks at the camera and explicitly says, I'm about to piss a lot of people off.
He invited the conflict. He threw the bait right in the water.
He did. And the result, over 500,000 views and 6,000 comments. The controversy, the arguments in the comments, it all fueled the spread of the educational content. He used the rage engagement mechanism against itself.
That is so savvy. So we have pre-bunking, which is the vaccine, and we have algorithm hacking, the backward shirt. But there's a third element here, isn't there? Because you can't just trick people into learning. You actually have to connect with them on some level.
Yes. Strategy C is all about emotional storytelling and trust. And this comes from the work of Amelia Burke Garcia at the University of Chicago.
She talks about a new kind of opinion leader.
Right. Her theory is that social media has created this whole new class of opinion leaders. And if you are, say, a public health body and you want to get a message across, you can't just issue a press release anymore. It won't work. You have to work with the people who already have the trust of the community you want to reach.
There was a specific case study in the source material about the HPV vaccine that really illustrated this for me.
Yes. This was fascinating. Researchers worked with 10 influencers, but they weren't science influencers, not specifically. They were influencers of color who were also parents, you know, lifestyle influencers.
People who mostly post about their kids, their daily lives, recipes, that sort of thing.
Exactly. The researchers gave them fact sheets about the HPV vaccine, but, and this is the absolutely crucial part, they didn't tell them what to say. They didn't give them a script.
Why does that matter so much?
Because if it sounds scripted, the audience can smell it a mile away. It just feels like a paid advertisement.
Hello, fellow humans. My corporate sponsors have instructed me to tell you to consume this vaccine.
Exactly. Instead, the influencers created these really emotionally charged personal posts. They shared their own stories. They talked about their own fears as parents. They said things like, you know, I was really scared about this shot. I'd heard some bad things, but I looked at this fact sheet and I realized I want to protect my child from cancer, so I decided to do it.
So they acknowledge the fear rather than just dismissing it as irrational.
That's the key. A government website says the vaccine is safe and effective. An influencer says, I was scared, but I did it anyway for my kid. That is a completely different message, and it lands in a completely different way.
And what was the result?
The followers were much more likely to consider vaccination for their own children, because the message came from a relatable source that they already trusted, not a faceless, bureaucratic institution.
It goes right back to the Big Manny principle.
Yeah.
Trust is the only currency that matters. You can have all the data in the world, but if you don't have trust, you have nothing.
Precisely. Now, some influencers are content to build that trust in their own lanes, like Megan Rossi or Big Manny, but others are taking the fight directly to the source. They are purposefully stepping into the ring.
Into the lion's den. Okay, we have to talk about Dr. Mike.
Mikhail Varshevsky.
He's a complete juggernaut. 14.6 million YouTube subscribers. That is bigger than most cable news shows.
It is, and yet he still practices family medicine half the week. He keeps one foot firmly planted in the real world of seeing patients.
And his target audience isn't just the people who already love science and medicine, is it?
No, not at all. He specifically aims for the skeptics. He wants to reach the people who have been hurt by the medical system or who feel ignored by their doctors and who have maybe turned to alternative medicine as a result.
And he got into a pretty high-profile conflict with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
He did, and regardless of your politics, this conflict is a perfect case study in the asymmetry of information warfare that we talked about earlier.
RFK Jr., who is now the head of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Right. So Dr. Mike points out this dynamic. RFK Jr. can tweet something that is scientifically inaccurate. Let's say a claim about vaccines causing a specific injury. That tweet can get 10 million views instantly. It travels around the world while the truth is still, putting its shoes on.
And then what happens? The American Medical Association fact-checks it.
They issue a statement, a press release, maybe a PDF. And that statement gets, 10 likes?
It's David and Goliath, but Goliath has a megaphone and David has a whisper.
Exactly. The lie is exciting and provocative. The correction is boring and technical. So Dr. Mike's solution is volume. He tries to match the volume of the misinformation. He creates high production, high energy content to fill that void. He made a reaction video to RFK Jr.'s claims. It got 3 million views.
And it actually drove viewers to contact Congress. I mean, that is a tangible, real-world impact.
It is. But he takes it even further than that. He went on a show called Surrounded.
This sounds like an absolute nightmare scenario to me. My palms start to sweat just thinking about this setup.
It is a reality competition-style debate show produced by Jubilee Media. And the setup is this. Dr. Mike stands in the center of a circle. Surrounding him are 20 vaccine skeptics. Or in another episode, 20 Kennedy supporters.
So it's just him against 20 people at once.
Just him, no script, no edits, no safety net, just a rapid-fire, free-for-all debate.
And the vibe is, I'm guessing it's intense.
It is incredibly heated, it's emotional, people are shouting over each other, it is genuinely stressful to even watch.
So why would he do that? I mean, why would anyone subject themselves to that kind of abuse?
Because, as he puts it, it's the only way to get in front of people who are outside of his echo chamber. If he just stays on his own YouTube channel, he's largely preaching to the choir. But on a show like Surrounded, he is in the mix. He is showing up in the recommended feeds of people who fundamentally disagree with him.
He's trying to burst the filter bubble.
Exactly. But there is a massive, massive risk to leaving that bubble. It's not just stressful, it can be genuinely dangerous.
We have to talk about the dark side of this. Because it's not all just fun chicken experiments and clever backward chirps.
No, not at all. And we have some insight on this from Adam Levy, who goes by at Climate Adam online. He's an atmospheric physicist, similar to Simon Clark.
And what's his experience been like?
It's a complete double-edged sword. On the one hand, he gets these amazing messages from people saying, I watched your video and I changed how I vote on climate policy, or I decided to study physics because of you. I mean, that's the dream.
But then there's the other side of the sword.
The abuse. The moment you touch on these highly charged topics like climate change or vaccines, you attract a terrifying amount of hate. And it's not just people saying you're wrong. It's deeply personal attacks. It's threats.
Doxing. People revealing his personal information.
Doxing, constant trolling, people emailing his university trying to get him fired. It takes a massive mental toll. These creators have to constantly weigh the positive impact of their work against their own well-being and safety. Adam Levy talks about the sheer exhaustion of constantly being told you are a liar or a shill for some conspiracy.
It's such a heavy burden. We're essentially asking these scientists to be educators, entertainers, video editors, social media managers, and punching bags for the internet's collective anger.
And for the most part, they are doing it largely without the kind of support or funding that you might expect.
That leads us right to the money. Because fighting a war, even an information war, isn't free. Cameras cost money, editing software costs money, time is money.
The economics of all of this are very, very tricky.
We mentioned earlier that misinformation campaigns are often really well funded.
Extremely well funded. I mean, think about the interest behind climate denial, the fossil fuel lobby, or think about the multi-billion-dollar wellness industry selling supplements. There is a direct profit motive to sell the lie. If I can scare you about toxins, I can sell you the detox tea.
But if I tell you eating more fiber from vegetables is good for you,
who's paying for that ad? The International Broccoli Council. There just isn't the same kind of profit margin in the truth.
So someone like Simon Clark, how does he keep the lights on? How does this work as a job?
He was very open about this in the source material. He said, quote, cash flow is a real problem. He's basically doing high-level journalism, but he's relying on the very precarious creator economy model to fund it.
Which means, what? YouTube ads.
YouTube ad revenue, which fluctuates wildly from month to month. Patreon, so direct support from viewers. And then sponsorships.
This is the part that always feels a little weird to me. You're watching a really serious video about the collapse of the Antarctic ice shelves, and then suddenly, but first, let me tell you about Squarespace.
It is jarring, and Clark admits that it feels icky. He calls it creator capitalism. He knows that it can potentially hurt his credibility, but he also acknowledges the reality. To make these high-quality videos, to do the research, to pay an editor, to pay for animation, it costs a lot of money. And the sponsorships are what pay for that.
So it's a necessary evil. If he doesn't take the sponsor, the video doesn't get made, and the misinformation just wins by default.
Exactly. He's using the tools of capitalism to critique the failures of capitalism. It's messy, it's complicated, but it's pragmatic.
But are we seeing any kind of shift from the big institutions? Because surely the UN or the WHO should be funding this, right? Why is it all up to a guy in his bedroom with a Patreon account?
They are slowly, very, very slowly waking up to this reality. In November 2024, the UN, UNESCO, and Brazil announced something called the Global Initiative for Information Integrity on Climate Change.
That is a mouthful of a title.
It's a very bureaucratic name. But the goal is to support research and public awareness campaigns. And the WHO is doing something similar with a network they've called FIDES.
FIDES.
It's named after the Roman goddess of trust. And it's a network of healthcare influencers. The WHO is finally realizing that they can't just publish a PDF on their website and expect Gen Z to find it and read it.
Right.
They need to support the influencers who can actually translate that dense science for the public.
So the institutions are starting to see themselves as providing the ammo, the data, the resources, and the influencers are the soldiers on the front lines who are actually delivering it to the target.
That's a really good analogy. They're realizing that in the modern attention economy, truth doesn't sell itself. You need a salesperson, you need a personality, you need a story.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the best lie and why our brains are so susceptible to it. We've met this new guard of science influencers, Simon Clark, Megan Rossi's, Big Manny. We've analyzed their playbook, pre-bunking, hacking the algorithm, emotional storytelling. We've looked at the conflicts and the very real personal cost.
It's a really complex ecosystem. It's not just smart people versus dumb people. It's a battle for attention, pure and simple.
It really is. And honestly, looking at all of this together, I think it forces us to kind of rethink what truth even looks like in the 21st century.
We are seeing a fundamental shift. I mean, for a long, long time, we operated under the assumption that if the science was right, that was enough. The facts will speak for themselves.
But they don't. They really don't.
They don't. On a platform like TikTok, facts whisper, lies scream.
So the scientists just have to learn to scream louder.
Or at least they have to learn to sing a more interesting song. They have to be entertaining, they have to be sticky, they have to be memorable.
And honestly, the image that is going to stick with me from all of this is that poor chicken breast.
The lithium chicken.
It's silly, it's a little gross, but it works. Yeah. It communicates the danger in a way that a chart never could. And maybe that's the big lesson here. We often think of science as this pure, cold, detached, emotionless thing. Just the facts. But the source material shows us that humans just do. We aren't built that way.
We are storytelling animals. We crave connection. And at the end of the day, relatability and storytelling are the only things that seem to actually change minds on social media.
So here is the question we want to leave you with today. We've seen that to fight misinformation, these scientists are adopting the tactics of the influencer world. They are using what amounts to clickbait. They are using emotional hooks. They're wearing their shirts backward to consciously hack an algorithm.
It raises a pretty provocative question. Does using those tricks degrade the science itself? Does it cheapen the expertise?
Or is this simply the necessary evolution of education in the modern age? Are we comfortable with the idea that a brilliant physicist needs to also be a savvy entertainer just to be heard?
It's the difference between being right in an empty room or actually being heard in a very, very crowded one.
It's something to think about the next time you're doom scrolling at midnight and you see a chart suddenly pop up in your feed.
Indeed. Check your sources, everyone. And maybe, check if your shirt is on backward.
And engage critically. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.